Okay, let's keep going and try to add a little bit of interactivity to our application. Right now, we have an application, we have a window with some content, and we run it, and then we have this tidy, and we're not using tidy, so we'll get rid of that right now, okay? And get rid of the associated function as well. And what I want to do this time is to change our application so that it opens a little bit bigger window. It displays some text, like Hello World, and then it has a text entry field underneath it that I can type in, and below that it has a button. And whenever I type something in that field and then click that button, I want the label, which currently says Hello World, to say whatever I've typed instead, okay? Now to make that happen, we have to make a few changes. To start with, we're not going to be putting our label in like this as a widget. Here's where we're going to start to use containers, okay? So I'll delete that, and we're going to have some errors for a little while, but just ignore those. And what I'm going to do is, just after I create my window, I'm going to call a function that doesn't exist yet. But I want a really easy way to share bits of my application with various functions and other parts of my application. So I'm going to come up here to the very top. After my import statement, I'll declare a type, and I'll call it app, and it will be our application config, and it's just a struct. And right now it has one field, output. Where are we going to display our output, okay? And that's going to be of type a pointer to, right from the find package, widget.label, okay? So we have that, and then I'll declare a package level variable called var myApp. And this is not the find application type. Instead, this is of the type app that I just defined, okay? And down here, after I declare my variable w and assign it the value of a new window of type find.window, I'm going to call a function that doesn't exist yet. And I'm going to get three values from it. Output. And I'm also going to get entry. So output will be a label. Entry will be a widget.entry. And then a button, btn. And those are going to be populated when I call a function called makeUI. Okay, now that doesn't exist yet, so let's go down here. And let's create a function called makeUI. And it's going to return, it takes no parameters, but it's going to return a pointer to widget.label, a pointer to widget.entry, and a pointer to widget.button. So as you can see, there's all kinds of widgets, and we'll be using a lot of them as time goes on, okay? Now the very first thing I'll do is create a new label, and I'll call it output, and it's assigned the value of, just like we had up in the set content call a little while ago, widget.newLabel, and I'll call it Hello World again. Okay? So there's my first widget. My second one is a text entry, and it's called entry, and it's assigned the value of, and there's no surprises here, widget.newEntry. And this doesn't take any parameters. It's just a text entry field, okay? And then we'll declare a button, btn. And that's assigned the value of widget.newButton. And this does take some parameters. First of all, what do you want your button to say? I'll just call it enter. And then, what do you want your function to do? And I'll just inline the function, okay, like this. Go has first-class functions, which means a parameter to a function can be a function itself. When someone clicks on this button, what do I want to have happen? Well, what I want to have happen is in my app variable, which I don't have access to, but I will in a moment, I want the output, that field we added to our type app, I want to set its text, set text, to be equal to whatever entry.text is. In other words, whatever the user typed. Now, how do I get access to this app variable? Well, I just add a receiver here. And the receiver, I'll call it app, and it's a pointer to type app, that type we defined. Which means up here, where I call it, I just change this to be myapp.makeUI. Okay? Because this variable myapp is of type app, it has access to anything inside this struct. That means I can call app.output.setText. And all this does is say, find that value, output, from the receiver app and set its text to whatever is currently in entry.text. Okay. Now, obviously, to make that happen, I have to add to the receiver app in the make UI function, output is going to be equal to output. Okay. And now I need to return the right things in the right order. Output is the label, entry is the text entry, and button is the button. Okay? So now back up here, I still have one error. I've declared these three variables and populated them by calling myapp.makeUI, but I'm not doing anything with them. Well, here's where we're going to use a container. And there are many kinds of containers, but we're going to use something called VBox. And all the VBox container does is stack all of its entries one on top of the other vertically. And that's perfect for my purposes. And we can do that here in set content by saying container dot new VBox. And then it takes as arguments the things that I want to show in that container in the order I want them to show from top to bottom. And that would be output, entry, and btn. Okay? So, a little bit more code, but not a whole lot. All I've done is create an application, add a window to that application and give it a title. Then I called make UI and got back three widgets, a label, a text entry, and a button. And that button has some logic associated with it. And once I have those, I add them to a container of type new VBox in this order, and then I show and run the window. Now we're going to make some more changes, but let's run it right now and see what it looks like. So I'll clear the screen and type go run dot. And I have an imported and not used format, so I just need to save this, and that will clean out my imports. And now we'll clear the screen and try it again. Go run dot. And there's my window. Now it currently says hello world, but I can click in here and type, say, fish, and then hit the enter button, and it changes fish up here in the output, that label. We changed its content. But you notice the window kind of changed size, and that's a little bit awkward. Let's quit this and hide our terminal and come back here just before show and run. I'm going to size that window. W is my variable that holds the window. And then I'll call the method resize. And resize takes as a parameter fine.size is the type right from the fine package. And I just say its width. I'll set that to say 500 pixels. And its height, I'll set that to 500 pixels as well. Okay? Now it didn't do the import for me. So let's try that again. Fine.size. There. And that did the import for me. So now that I've done that, let's open a terminal and run the program again. And I should get a window 500 by 500. And I do. And now I can type fish in here and it won't resize the window for me. Fish, and enter, and away we go. Now that's a pretty bland button. And this is something you'll discover as you're working with Fine. Fine has two themes by default, light and dark. And what they want you to do, they're fairly opinionated about this, is they want you not to set that theme manually. But if I come up to my terminal window, or my system preferences, sorry, and I go to General on a Mac and say use the dark theme, you notice that this changed to be using the dark theme instead, okay? Which makes this a little harder to see. Maybe I should change the color of that button. Well, without a lot of work, I'm going to put this back in the light theme because I prefer it. Without a lot of work, you can't really change the color very much. You have three things available to you: low importance, medium importance, and high importance. So I'm going to quit this application and hide my terminal. And down in my make UI function, after I define the button, I'm going to set its importance by saying button, btn, dot importance is equal to widget dot high importance. And now I'll open my terminal and run the program again, and the button should look more important. And it does. It's blue now. Okay, and that's easier to see in the dark theme as well. So now we have a container with three widgets, and we have some logic applied to one of those widgets, the enter button, that updates the value or the text content of the label. And it was pretty straightforward. There is not a lot of code required to make this happen, as you can see. Okay, let's move on.